Well,
But yeah,
I mean, you know how much I love you, so
yeah,
it goes beyond art, and I think that you know, your work is so brilliant and needed, and it's just my pleasure too to be in conversation with you and whoever tunes in, but it's very comfortable for me, to be in conversation with people's work that I actually know, I actually felt and heard, and has impacted my work. So definitely.
yeah, same. Like, just like I just always think about like around the first time when I first met you, and we were just like, um, doing a million shows a week and like playing in punk rock bands and stuff like that. It's always
Hmm.
like it was such a weird moment in history and like um and both of our sort of like musical progressions and just artistic
Hmm.
progressions in general. And then it's
Yeah.
like look at us now, ma, or whatever. I don't know, it's weird. But it's, it's such a weird like meta thing to me because I never expected like um people outside of my friendship group to like really sort of gravitate to what I was doing because it's like so
Mm,
weird, you know, like it's so queer and it's so black and it's so marginalized, right? To this like degree of like um where I almost felt that it was sort of like um that it would never be able to like reach outside of itself to make an impact. Does that make sense?
mhm.
Like I don't
No,
like
I totally
yeah,
identify with that.
yeah.
I totally identify with that. I mean, even to this day, I'm like, wow, I'm making this
Right.
really kind of weird stuff, and I can't even believe, I still feel so isolated,
Mm,
this kind of way. But the way that it's been able to impact certain groups of people or new people,
mhm.
or just being able to have the opportunity to bring it into different spaces. Let's say it like that. Um, you know, I don't think it's so weird,
Right.
coming from, us in Philly. I felt like, the whole world would love it, but I didn't understand how to present it to the world. You just present it at the venue.
Right.
You present it to your friends. I didn't understand how to take it further, and I mean, that says a lot about where we are in Philadelphia, and, how musicians have to survive there, you know. Um, says a lot. We don't have these kind of infrastructures that New York City has. We don't have these kind of rich celebrities coming back to the neighborhood,
Right.
to check out shows and see bands that will inspire them. We don't have that in New York. You have so many people coming through, but in Philly, we don't have that. It's really tough. We have a lot of great people that come from Philly, but
Right.
yeah, we don't see them as often.
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely a sort of like um I want to say I guess nomadic culture in a lot of ways as far as the music goes. But then it's also a lot of people who like are so intrinsically Philly that they don't get a chance to like breach these sort of walls or whatever. Like and um I think with like what you're doing is definitely definitely being um is definitely shining a light on um uh what we're doing down here. I think what the music and the art and just like the daring in the actual shows that you play has opened up so many um, avenues to like what people of color are doing here in Philadelphia, and I think it's about time, you know, like you're able to do the perfect balance of being like so intrinsically Philly, but also like this is international and like from like a Black diaspora perspective, it's very important for us to like kind of like think globally too. Like we
Mm-hmm.
forget that because like we're surrounded, like, you know, it's easy for us just to take the 42 and go downtown and like, you know, we consider that a day trip, you know. But it's like it's so
Yeah.
easy for us to like get into like block mentality here. But like I think with our art and with our music, we're able to like think on a global scale and be able to like reach audiences that um that need us, that need this kind of energy, this um like post Afrofuturism, whatever you want to call it, like energy to like be prevalent in society. And this is gonna sound super um like weird, but like in a magic sort of way. Like I really believe in like uh what you do is can be symbolic, but also it can be shambolic too. So just
Mm-hmm.
us being out there presents these symbols and these like hieroglyphs that people can't ignore, and that can end up being like transformative and like um, in a very ritualistic way. And I think it's important for us to like continue to be as like uh, intense and non-commercial and but at the same time like doing really weird stuff. You know what I mean? Like and doing it in these spaces because we have to be able to like maintain it and sustain it and like break through these like all of these barriers and stuff, you know.
No, I definitely agree with you know, and feel everything you just said. But the one thing I think about, you know, and maybe it's like, you know, unfortunate that I think about this, but I feel like I should have or I should be doing so much more from the output, you know, that I've been working, you know, and I sit back and I think about that, you know, like why haven't I, you know, been able to open up more, you know, doors as I say, yes, I am opening doors, you know, yes, I am making connections and, you know, all these different groups that I've been able to form and, you know, but I feel like because of that certain type of weirdness, you know, I'm still climbing this curve,
Sure.
even though it's like I've been in all of these venues, you know, I've been in more of the venues. You get me? So it's just
Right.
like because of this weirdness, I still have to climb this kind of mountain or something just to get to something where if I was so, i.e., normal or conformative in these, you know, that I probably would have been able to do, you know? And
Right.
I feel like, but all of that's for a reason, you know, you always got to remain true to who you are, you know? But I definitely think that more of a platform could be, you know, held up for Philadelphia and artists that have, you know, come from there that are just as great, you know. So
Yeah.
but it's still working towards the goal of opening more doors and creating more situations and walking into, you know, things that I'm doing with more agency,
Mhm.
you know. That's been the definitely move, you know,
Mhm.
with everything, shows or who I'm able to tour with, you know, just really stepping into it as much as I can, moving from the idea of just being thankful to be someplace. You know what I mean?
And yeah, it's about like um partly it's about like commanding that space and being like, look, this is what I'm presenting, and you're just
Hmm.
gonna have to just deal with it, right? Like,
Yeah,
uh,
definitely.
I think with my bands like Solar Eyes and Rainbow Crimes, I often think that like, you know, oh, we should maybe water this down and like, you know, have an R&B interlude or something. But then I'm also kind of
Hmm.
like, while that might be interesting on some level, right? It's also kind of like, um, what the work that I'm doing with with those bands is not necessarily like um trying to create something for mass appeal. It's more about like um planting a seed that evolves into a garden where um you know it's creating a sort of like pathway for the future, right? Like I'm creating relics
Oh,
that should be like um something that people think about like in future times. And like I need to find a space in my creative sort of like spirituality where I'm like kind of okay with that, you know, and like maybe more than okay with that, because you know, we can see, so the stuff that we were doing before any of this kind of popped off, before Afrofuturism kind of popped off, with like Laser Life and Rockers and the Afrofuturist Affair and all of these things, right? The seeds that we planted, um, you and I might not see all the immediate benefits of it. Clearly, we have. You know,
Oh yeah.
we've won some awards, we've gone some places, especially you know with your touring overseas. But it's also kind of like you can just see like Philly being represented on a national scale with like I would watch episodes of Lovecraft Country and be like, that's literally a short story that I wrote 5 years ago, right? Like on the screen.
Hmm.
But like we
Oh,
planted
definitely.
right, we
Oh,
planted these seeds,
definitely. Yeah. No,
like
no, no.
you know, we
Always
planted the seeds
casting
to like,
spells.
oh sure,
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
So like that allows people like Lizzo to operate. That allows uh Beyonce to create, you know, Lemonade. Like you know what I mean? Like the things
Hmm.
that we're doing here in Philly, I guess kind of in Oakland and Detroit, like we're creating this sort of like seed bed in the underground that sort of like infiltrates and blossoms into this overground, which has good and bad, like because obviously it gets exploited and it's like
Yeah.
you know, Black Panther made billions of dollars at the box office, but how many Black people actually saw that money, right? Like,
Right.
what programs came out of that? Like, they just
Right.
need more money so they can put out Thor 3, you know, or Thor 4 or whatever. I don't know. So it's like, so those kinds of things sort of like bug me, but it's like the idea that what we're doing creates like a blueprint for the future has been something that has kind of like kept me alive, to be quite honest, because I'm stuck in a place where I'm like, what can I do to affect change, right? What can I do to like
Hmm.
create something that to affect real change, like unit shifting, paradigm shifting change? Because like I'm not interested in voting. I'm not interested in like going down to city council meetings and you know doing
Yeah.
phone trees and like. So what can I do? And like I think like this magic that we're a part of has been extremely key in like changing this and creating this paradigm shift. That's like a weird humble
Yeah.
brag, but it's just like true, right?
It's 100% true. And I mean, I can even see its imprint globally,
Mm-hmm.
you know, from the first shows that I've done, you know, I've seen more people, you know, in the avant-garde try to bring poetry in there, you know, try to play more freer, to try to speak up about things that are happening in the world, you know, and I could go right back to their last CD where they
Mm-hmm.
weren't saying any of this.
Right.
You get me?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, so I definitely see that impact, you know, but I definitely see that it's the consumer coming up to this point of telling the difference, knowing the difference, and not settling, you know, because
Absolutely.
you know there's tons of poachers out there. Like you said, it can be, you know, corrupted, you know, and there's been a lot of people that come into Philly and just, you know, revamp the language, but they're just taking the language. They're not giving any respect to what's been done, you know, and that, so, you know, I mean, it brings that kind of situation. Like, don't confuse this with that, you know, and they need to see more of it on a larger scale, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what I was saying a little bit earlier. Like, we deserve to have this on a larger scale, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and so in general, like, um, you do like, oh, and one other thing about that, what you're saying about like now there's suddenly like these kind of like woke, like post Afrofuturist performers or whatever. Um, I always think that it's really interesting that even in like this sort of like post pandemic Trump times or whatever, um, you know, that that was supposed to be a cultural marker where people were going to create the shift, but it also brought to light the fact that like there were so many artists in not just music but in so many genres who like didn't have anything at all to say. So it's kind of like,
Right.
you know, we end up in this moment, and you don't have any sort of like art that is speaking to our times. And to me that's a little bit more telling than like what you plan to do going forward. Like, I hate to sound like that. It sounds super
Yeah.
weird to say, but like, I guess when you've been in the trenches and trying to create music that affects people, then to suddenly have like people who continue to like, you know, write songs gaslighting their ex-girlfriends or whatever, suddenly try to write
Right.
a political song because Trump, because COVID, because George Floyd, you know, it just feels a little
Mm-hmm.
hollow. And you're just kind of like, where was this energy back when like we weren't trending as a hashtag? So
Exactly.
yeah. But,
No, I mean, you see that like, you know, you see that so many times, these kind of opportunists, you know, but you see who relates to each other and who continues to stick together,
mhm.
you know, that becomes important, you know. And you would think that, you know, I just did a show in London, and you know, it's just like you go through so much and you expect people to kind of know what you are coming with, you know, but it's so much tied to the business of who's next, who's this, who's, you know, who's checking these kind of boxes,
Mhm.
that you know, the care isn't really there, you know. And there's been some promoters that I've been able to have a great conversation, you know, connection with and understands, but you know, it's not like, I don't know, it's not kind of everywhere. Everyone's really tied to the business. If it's
Right.
not good, if the label says it's not good to release some music while I'm sitting home, then most people are not going to do it,
Mhm.
you know. And that's just kind of weird, you know. But you know, for me during that time, it was all I had to do, and I was, you know, going through depression, and it was the, you know, what else was I supposed to do but
Sure.
create? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I didn't care about whatever. I was trying different avenues to get the music out. You know,
Mhm.
that was just my thought process. Um, because there's always so much to say. You know, we created our own platforms. You know, it would have been nice if we didn't have to do that and they were just there and we could perform at all these
Right.
places, and,
Right.
you know, but we had to like put in all this work, you know, and it definitely did prepare us for any stage, you know. Um, but, you know, it's very hard,
Yeah.
you know, when people have all these backroom deals, you
Mhm.
know. That's how it was coming in Philly. Like, I didn't even know backroom deals were even happening. Then you know
Right.
that they're happening, you know, and then you're like, whoa, people are getting this for this. And,
Right.
you know, it's shocking,
Mhm.
you know, and it's a lot about, it has says a lot about class too, you
That's true.
know, in the music scene,
Mhm.
you know. And sad but true, I don't know if it wasn't always like this, but those with the most you know, the higher class musicians get the most support. And that's just how it is, you
Yeah.
know. And they're not even doing anything. They're not even creating any magic. So
Right.
basically what I was saying in this the show I did in London, the energy was that people just wanted to spaz out, you know, kind of like this wasted kind of energy, you know,
Yeah.
like drunkenness,
Right.
you know. And I'm just like, that's where we, you know, it was just interesting, you know, to be in front of that crowd and feel that energy. Like, is this really what this is what we want to do?
Yeah.
You know, I would expect to feel something else from the audience, especially a young, because this was a young crowd. Now, the majority of the crowds that come see me are like middle age, so this was a really young crowd.
Mm,
So it was interesting that that was the energy. But I didn't feed into that.
mm.
My whole set was
I
like
know.
a whole lesson.
Right.
It
No,
was
I
like
know.
a
I
whole
know.
education
I know.
lesson. But I
Right.
could tell they wanted it because I played one song, a song actually I did with Nah. You remember
Mm,
Nah, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I'm actually reminded of that show because it was a similar energy, but you kind of brought it back to the spirit of the thing, which was like
y-
so funny to me because that's exactly what I was thinking of.
mhm.
It was like that sounds like the last time you played with Nah a couple of years ago. But yeah.
Yeah, but that was different. That was
Mm,
different
mm,
because that was like a celebration.
yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I
Exactly.
mean? That
Yeah.
one was like a celebration. That was my album release.
Mm,
Something that I never even thought I would ever make a vinyl record.
right. That was
You
fetish,
know, it,
right?
yeah, that was the
Yeah.
Fetish Bones release for. I
Mhm,
never even knew that I would
mhm.
had a chance to make a vinyl record,
That's
you
crazy.
know? And it's one person saying something, Jared from Screaming Females saying to Joe, you should check out More Mother. She's in Philly. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that was it. But so, and plus, and I speak about this all the time, especially after that
Mm.
Travis Scott thing. You heard about that?
Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah, that festival. But like at Rockers, if you will fall down, someone would pick you up right away.
right.
We didn't have no time to be out here getting hurt.
No.
We didn't have insurance or nothing.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
we here to support each other, listen to the music.
We don't have
Um,
insurance. The venue don't have insurance. Like
yeah, like it's
there's
not
no
that type
insurance.
of
There's no insurance on the
yeah.
whole block, right? Like it's just like
Right.
it's just Chinese
It's not
stores.
that type of energy where we're just there to, maybe one person had a rough day and they're super drunk, but not that type of energy that we really dealt with. And so just speaking on just normal young kids at a show, what the energy was, it surprised me, honestly. But I know, big shows are happening, people are moshing, things are getting thick, but you would just think with that year, you know, um, what people want, and it's still to be much of the same,
Yeah.
this kind of sensationalism or, you know, uh, same
Yeah.
old kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah. Like and
Even
I
when pop stars don't have much to say,
right,
you know.
right. And I get it that people want to release, but it's like you said, like the wasted energy is what has always been so surprising to me. And it's not that people drink or do this or that, the other thing, but it's definitely just like the wasted energy. Like I'll see all these EDM festivals and it'll just be like the same kind of monotonous beat over and over again, like a guy in like a cartoon mask, like behind the turntable, sort of like pointing at the crowd and not really doing anything. And there's like thousands of people there just kind of like jumping around and that's super interesting to me because it's like there's such a swell of like energy, of spiritual energy that's kind of like evaporating into the ether when like I don't know a few tweaks here and there could make that moment be so transformative, right? Like, and I'm not saying
Hmm.
that like they need to do what you and I do, which is like, you know, um, do libations or something, or like read these like treatises off of like, pamphlets before our performances or anything. But I just mean like create something that has like a hint of like substantive value, spiritual value,
Yeah,
so, like plant a little magic seed like
yeah.
in your samples or something so that like
Hmm.
you're just sort of getting there under the surface at least. But no, people just want to like remix Squid Game and like the Stranger Things soundtrack and like
It's,
on April,
yeah,
2 days before the show and then go out and play in front of like 3,000 people and not affect anything, right? It's just we're living in a time where like fascism is seriously on the rise and like this is what you want to do with your voice. You want to just sort of like let people zone out, like erase their energy and not affect things. And that's just weird to me. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to suddenly become Noam Chomsky on the mic, but I mean, come on, like you can say something sometimes, and it's just when you have that huge of a platform, like what is it that we're actually doing with this music sometimes? What
Yeah,
makes
and I
it
mean, yeah, and I also think about myself as an individual. I'm with all this sound. I try to think about this. If we're surrounding ourselves with all this sound, it's also doing something to us.
Mhm.
So I'm just like, at some point, it's really got to be about, us, and what we want for each other, and kind of taking away this kind of competition. That's why I said again, just getting bigger platforms so more can be involved.
Yeah,
Um, you know, I always try to make the connections with the stories, but I like I said, it's also about creating more agency every time I do something, and knowing and not and dreaming bigger, this kind of thing with even what I want the sound to do for me, and I look at someone that was a real inspiration around this, Milford Graves, because they kept giving Milford Graves these expiration dates and he kept transcending them. So it was kind of like, we can transcend these kind of like false expiration dates they're putting on us, our work, and how they monopolize it. I don't know if, yeah,
no, yeah, that makes that
just
makes
thinking.
makes total sense. That makes like absolute sense. It's like they're so ready to just kind of like euthanize, especially black music. They're always ready to like move towards the next trend in the
Hmm.
mainstream. That it's like it becomes this sort of like uh, cannibalizing thing. But like you like to switch gears a little bit, but
Yeah.
I feel like how you approach it by doing multiple genres is an interesting way of avoiding those expiration dates that sort of like corporate euthanization, I guess, of and like defying um what is intended for like a black artist to be, right? Like I feel like um you doing multiple genres um is pretty much unprecedented. Like and I know just knowing you that that's just like a natural part of what you do and who you are. But when you first started doing that, like you dropped True Opera and then you dropped like Irreversible Entanglements, like which is like straight up jazz with like a little kind of like proggy stuff thrown in, like, and then you just like rapping on the next album, like, and like not just rapping, but like murdering the track or whatever. Like, are people like how are people responding to that? Like out in the wild, like I know journalists be struggling, and like every time I read the article
Yeah.
you post, I'm like, yo, y'all be struggling, man. They out here, boy, like trying to get in the game, like Patrick Beverly or something. Like they doing all
Yeah.
right, but they ain't really, hitting threes all the time. Like it's just weird. Like,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, I don't think people still know how to approach it.
Hmm.
Still, I don't know, like I said, I don't know, what goes on into people's minds.
Yeah.
Um, and why is like too much sometimes, to take in or even understand. I think it's a couple of different levels that how people interact with me, you know. Um, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
It's just like when you don't follow the rules, people don't like it. I'm not making it easy for anybody,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't know. It's almost like some people are like, "Oh, you dropped true opera. Are you serious about this genre? Are you
Right.
taking this genre into
Right.
consideration?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? This
Hmm.
genre? This isn't even a genre. It's coming from something that actually you know nothing about.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, don't talk to me about where something is or important to that. Like, you know, someone, I think it was Zoo that said this to me, because I was like, man, I just want to play the blues. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to do all this music, but at the end of the day, I just want to play the blues.
Mm.
And then Zoo was like, you already played the blues. And I was
Mm.
like, of course I already play. I know I already, you know, like
Right.
it
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
made sense. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know, you know, what they think I'm doing, electronic music. I'm not doing no electronic music. We
Mm-mm.
didn't even have synthesizers yet.
Mm.
You know, how was we doing electronic music when we
Right.
didn't even have access to synthesizers?
Mm-hmm. You talking
Only
about
when I,
700 Bliss?
well, no, just like starting out in Philly,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, I
Mm-hmm.
had like an iPad, then it was analog instruments.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have like no crazy racks and stuff. It was a couple
Right.
of guys, white guys in the scene that actually were, you know, they're cool, you know. But you know what I mean? It's like we ourselves didn't have synthesizers and stuff
Yeah.
yet, you know, but we still were doing any genre we want to do. You know, I feel like it's like that. Like we have the agency over the genres,
Yeah.
not the other way around. It's like, this is our music.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I do anything I want to do? But yeah, if you release something just on Bandcamp, it can be amazing. They're still like, oh, we don't really know how to interact with
Right.
this because you didn't release it on this. Or if you release something on vinyl, but you don't put it on streaming. It's like, I thought everyone hated streaming.
Mm-hmm.
No, only the poor artists hate streaming. You know, there's tons of artists getting big checks from streaming.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's all these different ways you got to play by these rules.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the most simple ones is you could only release an album a year or 2 albums a year if you're lucky. What is this craziness?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or even when Beyonce didn't announce an album and just released it, they were like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We've been doing that all the time because we never had PR. We had to say, hey, we're putting out an album this week.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it wasn't no, you know, but you get me? It's just kind of like they don't like you to break the rules. I don't even know who they are. The record companies, the press people, whoever, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah. I don't know what we were
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's just like it's just a funny thing because uh people are very like beholden to their genres and like especially like speaking up to opera, especially like the noise rock community, they're very like um uh possessive, right? And it's like I'm basically using a euphemism here, but it's kind of like this boys club, right? And
Mm-hmm.
anything or anyone that comes in there and sort of shakes that up is like uh not it's not even like mind blowing in a good way. It's just like they're just not able to like interpret it. So I don't know. It's
Yeah.
but the onus is on them, like you said, to sort of like look beyond the trappings of genre and to just kind of like
Mm-hmm.
feel something, feel this blues, feel this like sense of urgency. Um, and we sort of lose our way with that. It's like when you first get into music, everything is everything, right? Like everything is
Yeah.
like we don't care what it is. Like Public Enemy, Butthole Surfers, John's.
Yeah.
Like, this is just sound to us, right? Like it's just
Yeah.
cool shit that sounds cool, right? And then we sort of start to like compartmentalize things. And a lot of that is because we feel like, once you start hanging out with people and like getting to know the crowd, it becomes this sense of trying to gain social capital. And it's like, that's such a huge, because in the DIY scene, there's this illusion that there's no money. The only capital is really like social capital. So you start trying to gobble that up as soon as possible. And the best way to do that is to like, um, keep things behind these sort of like walls or whatever. And like, it's funny that you named your album "Open the Gates" because I have a track on my album, um, on the Solarized record, which is the punk rock band that I was in, where the chorus I scream "Open the Gates," and I was like, "Yo, my sister was like connecting with me on this because it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's such a visceral thing to just be like on the outside and to just like scream at this wall, either imagined or real. And sometimes,
Right.
and to just have this like uh sense of like, I see what you're doing, right? Like, and then
Mm-hmm.
put that on wax and just have everyone just know what you're, just know that right? Like certain, yeah, it's just so funny.
Yeah. And also to say that like we're ready. You know what I mean? It's like there's so many people that are not ready that are like pushed into certain situations,
Mm,
and I feel like that's kind of unfair too. But some people have the desperate mentality to be like, oh, I may not know nothing about this, but let me say I do to get this
yeah,
job.
right,
I
right,
I did that with softball, you know?
right.
I did not. I mean, I played a little softball, but I was like, hey, I
Mhm.
played, I lied to get that job. I'm going to tell the truth about that, you know? But in this kind of creative world, when we're like having an imprint on something and can move something forward,
Yeah,
you know, you have a lot of people, um, taking the positions even though it should be for someone else or not even passing it off to someone else, that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's wild. It's wild to work so hard to do all this work and still have to scream, open the gates. You know, it's
right.
it's it's just like, and it's interesting too because it's like it's a lot of walls. It's a lot of invisible walls. It's a lot of physical walls. You know what I mean? This kind of gatekeeping. And who sees what's cutting or what's at the
Yeah,
moment.
yeah,
You know, but what I've been realizing is that the ideas people need ideas. You know, um, it's like they have the platform to offer, but they don't have the ideas. You know, so now it's like trying to think about coming in. With everything, all of our stories intact.
yeah,
And so we're just like, actually, just give us the platform and move out the way. You know what I mean? That kind of
yeah.
situation. You know.
Right. Instead
Yeah.
of like trying to like box us into a thing, just
Yeah.
give us the thing and let us break out of the box. Let us do what we need to do.
Yeah, because one thing you see is that anytime we're in these positions, we make connections and we make ripples, we make waves, like that should be the resume. You know what I mean? Like the way that we are able to connect things and the people that we're able to pull to us, are all good people. Like I was even in the jazz scene, you got a lot of creepy men,
Right.
you know, and I just been like, hearing stories and being like, wow, I'm blessed, that I have the individuals that I've been, connecting with, because it's
Yeah.
kind of rare, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it's just like, that's something too, the people that, are in your circle, the people that continue to, create alongside you, you know what I mean? And it's all powerful and it's all energizing each other,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So just thinking there's power in that, you know.
Did you want to like play a song or two?
Oh yeah. I think we have a video queued up,
Yeah, I got that.
Dustin.
Let me just do you want
Yeah, it's
to
called
open the gates,
we
right?
just opened the gates. Yeah, from the just got off a tour with Irreversible Entanglements. We played the London Jazz Festival. We played La Guess Who, and we played Enjoy Jazz Festival. Um, Actually, it was kind of wild about this place. Lufthansa, I think that's how you say it, Germany, because it was built, the town was built all around this chemical plant in the late 1800s, So it's just like we have this kind of stuff that's happening in America now where you have like I can't think of the guy's name. He's SpaceX. What's his name? Leon, something Musk. Something this guy Musk.
Elon.
You
Yeah.
know, buying. Yeah, Elon. Sorry, I couldn't think of his name.
I like Leon though.
I think Leon is his weird cousin who comes to the barbecue and like tries to hit him up for like a couple bucks every once in a while. Yo, it's your cousin Leon Musk. Like, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, just what they're doing is buying the town and then forcing people out, and also giving people all kinds of sicknesses and cancers, you know. So this place was the factory first, and then they built the town around it. It's really nuts. I was actually pretty scared about this town, you know. But the festival was really great, you know, but it still was like really intense for me, you know, especially what's happening here in America with also Cancer Alley and several horrific sites in Texas. You know, these chemical plants are just, I can't even believe that they get to operate on the level they operate, you know, right in front of everything. It's nuts. This factory looked like something from the Matrix. Okay, like it was like too big to be real. So much smoke pumping from the towers. Oh my goodness. I tried to get it on film, but my mouth was just such in shock, you know, the whole time. But yeah, so this is a track from our latest album. The tour was very successful, I think. And yeah, here it is. Open the Gates, directed by Cyrus.
Open the gates, we arrive. Energy time. Universal sound law, not guilty, not doing time, unbound. An offering for freedom. We hold you, Saul forever's Neptune bliss. In exchange with Saturn, new Mars. Energy time. It's energy time. We arrive. Open the gates. Open the gates.
That's great.
Top flight. That's the record that I did the
Sorry.
my words are escaping me ironically when I'm but that's the I did the liner notes or the promo notes for that, right? Yeah.
for pretty much all of them, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think I did the first one and a couple of your other solo albums.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really cool.
You know,
Yeah, it makes me go to these like interesting places journalistically when I hear your stuff. And
yeah,
yeah,
the
always-
great thing is to have someone that gets it. You know, and it's just like that's such a blessing to me, you know, especially when we talk about music, like we said before, because you know.
facts.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess I'll play
Do
a
you want
song.
to share some music? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll play a song. We just went over this and I totally forgot to do it. Wait a minute. Gotta do that whole thing. The whole thing. Oh, sorry, yeah, there. Great. Whoops. So this is this will be like really crazy, noisy punk rock music. That I in a band that I did called Solarized. The idea behind Solarized, me and my friend, the guitarist, Joe Go, we were like, you know, we really want to sort of create sounds that were based on a sort of bygone era of hardcore and punk. And that era was like the sort of like 90s basement hardcore movement, hardcore punk movement. Mostly punk. I wasn't a huge hardcore fan, but like, and then we sort of went from there, and like, our music sort of branched out and became this sort of like weird kind of tribalistic thing. So yeah, I'm gonna play this track. It's called Portal Vortex, and it's basically about trying to pull yourself out of depression and to create, and about trying to create movements and artistic rituals, I guess, to sort of like change the world, which is like, as I said earlier, something that I've been really thinking a lot about lately, and invokes the writer Octavia Butler, in that, you know, Octavia was someone who saw that there was a dearth of Black and feminist science fiction, and so because of that, she proceeded to write her own, and that has been a very powerful idea for me. The fact that like if it doesn't exist, then you are essentially compelled to create it.
Keeps me tethered to a ghost world, into a portal, a vortex. Step into a parable, the call of the ancestors. Activity of benefits. Yeah, portal, yeah, vortex. Yeah, portal, yeah, vortex. Yeah, portal, yeah, vortex. I still dragging its limits, like a cosmic rays into my skin. Your words, rearrange my DNA. The portal, and vortex, and portal, and vortex. Still dragging it first through the sky. I'm just a paralyzed, watching it from the platform. Rearrange my DNA, watch it rearrange my DNA. Octavia, Octavia, be a fate. A portal, a vortex, a portal, a vortex. Sounds from masses. I wanna speak it through sight to black. To take place of demons and use the voice. Yeah, you just press command. Octavia, Octavia, be a fate. Just want something we can never have. A current base on the way. We shut the dream it up. We are science fiction. From a cuticle and an infirmary on a public assistance line. We shut the dream it up. We are science fiction. Behind the counter, stuck in a bedroom.
Yeah, that's that.
Yeah.
That was recorded a couple of years ago at Red Planet Studios. Jeffrey Ziga, who was our original drummer, he played drums and did a good bit of the bass work on that record. And like I said, Joe was the guitarist. He did bass as well, I think. And yeah, I did the vocals, lyrics, and conceptualizing. And like a lot of the conceptualizing for that record is based around like my collage art, which centers Black and brown bodies and sort of like Afrofuturistic vision for the world. One of the lines that's really important in that to me is our current bodies are heroic. We are science fiction. And to me, that just means that like the person that you are, as you are, whether you're queer, disabled, marginalized in any way, or if you're like a fat person, then you too can become like the hero in your own story. Like, you know, like we are allowed to be viewed as heroic entities, bodies, celestial stuff, right? And so, yeah, that's very important to me. Like this kind of, like people say, call it representation, but to me, it's more than that. It's more than just representation. It's about like you said, like we're playing for us too, right? Like it's about confirmation, it's about ritual, and it's about like sacred space. And we belong in the airwaves. Like Black people belong in the airwaves, right? And so whatever means we got to do it, whether we write a song, whether we do a ritual and you know in Love Park, you know, whether we like run up and snatch a Confederate flag and burn it off of a you know political building in the South, whatever we got to do, we deserve to be like the architects of our own destiny, right? And so like that was a 2-minute punk song, but that's kind of what that's about.
Yeah, I know, I love it. I love it.
Awesome. I guess we could share a couple more if you wanted to.
Yeah, do you want to share some of your art?
Okay. Let's see what we got.
See, the cool thing about the track, it's just like lyrics, good lyrics. It's like people don't care about the lyrics anymore. I don't know what that's about. Maybe I don't want to say lame, but like, you know,
Yeah.
it used to be about like, wow, did you hear what they said? You know, like, I don't know, it made you feel something, made you feel like you are, that you can be, you know, heroic, that you can survive, that you're more than survival, you know.
Like the lyrics are a huge part of like connectivity for me, you know, like being able to like just like connect with the world, right? Like and again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like you have this massive platform and you only get like, even if you do release like 5 records a year, but and even if we do try to like exist beyond our creative expiration date, you only get so many chances, right? Sometimes people like us, we often don't get any chances. Like, it's like you said, like, it just happened to be that an ally was just like, look, you need to put this out, right? Like someone did that to me. Someone was like, this person needs to be like doing talks like this, right? And so like you only get X amount of chances. So like, what are you gonna say, right? Like, so
I mean, but then you come to this kind of way, you know, as a sound artist or even experimenting. It's like, well, there's been so many things, especially coming from Philly, all the brilliant writers that we've met, that we've performed with. So many people are saying such great words, you know? It's kind of like, well, can we do this without the words, you know? And what's more important, just really driving without the words, or what, you know, I'm always kind of thinking on this double, you know, ways, you know, because we come from a great or very full, you know, plate of artists before us that said some really revolutionary things that we, are inspired by. So it gets kind of into that. And I think that's where the sci-fi, comes in, and speculation comes in. And taking it beyond the page and making, showing all the ways, even if we're, like your beautiful collage, like I collage too, these kind of ways where we say, this is what we're going to do with the music, and, just, making sure we stay that kind of path, to be as provocative as we are, to like understand that we can do all of, there's not an arena that we cannot go in because we have already been, we laid the foundation. So,
Yeah, that's definitely true. Like, a lot of, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Oh, okay, I just want to make sure I'm audible too. A lot of what we're doing, is just like born out of like the stuff that we're inspired by. Like to me, like obviously Sun Ra, Wu-Tang Clan, Sonny Chirac, Vernon Reed, The Velt, like all of these people were revolutionary to me. Toni Morrison, Octavia Butler, Ishmael Reed, all of these people were revolutionary to me, and also speculative. Like even if they didn't really like, even if some of the artists didn't talk about spaceships, plenty of them did. There was like this sort of speculative, science fiction-y, cyberpunk like element to all of these artists that like, because it just like felt like this like immersive universe was being created like every time they put pen to paper, right? And that is such a rarity in music, and it's like a strange like, because like we also, and I'm not trying to get into a black-white dichotomy, but I think what makes music intrinsically black are these like notions towards the speculative, because we're out here fighting for survival, but we're also like story has also been like so enwrapped with what we're doing and who we are as people that it's like it's hard to separate it. And so like where a rock band like Led Zeppelin or whatever can create like opus after opus where like they're telling the story through a kind of like Tolkien-esque fantasy, right? It doesn't feel real, right? It doesn't feel like you're connected to it in the same way that like you feel connected to what Sun Ra is doing, to what MF Doom was doing. Like you feel like you're in MF Doom's apartment while he's smoking blunts and talking shit to a girl on the internet, right? You feel like you're a part of that. And
it's like futures where we exist in,
Mhm.
and so I mean, I love that. I love that, and this idea of, these kind of living relics. I love this one. This one's gorgeous, Alex.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And there's just so many elders that I would love to have, be able to tap into, even more, and it's always about discovering these artists, because so many people are like local heroes kind of thing, that you have to like go to that neighborhood, or maybe there's some viral story or something like this,
Right.
that we can tap in because we know how plentiful, the vibration is, even when we step on stage, I'm definitely like, not alone, this kind of feeling that like, like I can really poke my chest out because I feel so many others, that have laid down the foundation, so, I just want to really dig into that even more, because this is, we have a say into changing that, and that's been my, one of my top influencers, just the stories of what we've been through, you know, and this thing of, you know, art and poetry and music and, you know, writing fiction, you know,
Yeah,
and essays, you know, um,
for sure.
yeah, just, yeah,
It's all connected and it's all a part of like what we do. And you know, it's almost like the two of us, like um it's both a blessing and a curse. I don't know if you would agree with this, but to be like pulled by like the past and trying to go into the future, but also like representing so many different things and trying to do so many different genres, quote unquote. And because like there's so much to do, right? Like there's so many cool
yeah,
things to do. There's so many ways to play the blues, right? So it's just
right.
it feels weird to just sort of like stick to one. So yeah, I guess maybe we can do a Q&A if people have questions, I guess. What do you think, Dustin?
I'm sure people have questions. Yeah, folks, start dropping them in. I'm gonna take, this is like one of the sort of joys of being an instigator of a talk like this. I'm gonna ask a question. I think one of the things that's kind of fascinating to me about both of your bodies of work is that they really seem to be adaptable to lots of different contexts and formats. I mean, I've been able to work with Kamei on, I mean, we've probably worked on like, I don't know, 6 or 7 different projects of different sizes, and they've all been really different, from, you know, just kind of small concerts to somebody else's curated, to an invitation, to, we did a music video over the spring. And I know that Alex, you know, you also have like a real, you know, a range of things that you're involved in. I first encountered you as a musician. I think now you're maybe getting more well known as a visual artist. Where do you kind of trace this kind of this, you know, I guess pluralistic, you know, multifaceted background, just in terms of like a discipline? And I think, you know, there's a lot of artists that are, you know, like, oh, I do this and that, but it seems like really integral to your practice. And so I'm kind of curious, like, are there specific places you kind of, you know, you might trace the inspiration for this? And you know, there's certainly precedents in other artists, but I'm very curious, like, you know, is there a place where you found this sort of experimenting in different types of music or different types of disciplines became like kind of not just a thing that you did on the side, but like kind of the main thing that you did was kind of doing a lot of different things?
For me, it was my mama, you know. She was like, here's some art supplies. Like, go do your thing. She wasn't like trying to be out there, like, you know, buying me all the toys or whatever. And she didn't have that kind of money. And, you know, she didn't want me out in the streets. So it was like, I'll never forget it. One Christmas, she got me like a microscope and like the 64 carousel of Crayola and like protractors and like compasses. And I was just like, okay, I guess this is what we're rolling with. This is what I'm getting for Christmas. I'm getting a bunch of art supplies. So like from that moment on, I've always been just like enamored with the ideas. Like I would spend hours in Radio Shack just looking at stuff and you know, like always been this kind of like sponge for media, but like at the same time, while I was just like sponge for media, I was also like very curatorial in my taste, even from a young age. Like, I wouldn't just like watch any old thing on any cartoon on TV. Like it had to be like the best thing that was out. Like it had to be like really, I had a really curated mind, even from a very young age. And I think just wanting to like, coming from a small town and wanting to be a part of something, sort of like made me want to gravitate towards like being a participant in culture and not just a consumer. So I think that's a huge part of where it comes from for me. I don't know if you felt the same, Kamei, if like you were given the tools earlier, if you just like stumbled into things. I don't know.
Yeah, I always liked sports, that was my thing. My sister was like a basketball player at North Carolina A&T, so like a historical Black college, and it was anytime I went there, it was so cool. And she was a big deal player, and the marching band. I just loved that whole thing. So I just wanted to play sports, play basketball. And then I wasn't, when you all you care about is sports, that kind of thing. You don't do much else in school.
Yeah.
So I got to high school, and then they told me, hey, you can't play, you didn't do well enough.
Mm.
So then they put me in art class.
Mm.
And I begged, my sister wrote a letter. I was like, oh, my life is going to fall apart if you don't let me play this year, And I got into art, and I had to do a project, and I picked, Bob Marley. I listened to Bob Marley's music, and I thought it was so nice, So I just, thought maybe art wouldn't be too bad. This kind of thing, I always loved music. I listened to music since I was real small, so that's something that I can deeply feel, just like as much as I like sports, but I just was like, the singers I knew were like Heidi Bell, Stephanie Mills, Debbie Pendergrass. I couldn't sing like that, so
right.
I didn't think that I could be a singer, but then I would find out through Bob Marley, I would find out about like punk rock and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, maybe I can be a singer, maybe I can be in a band, more about dreaming than like actually knowing how to do that, and so I graduated school thinking the only thing I could do was go to art school, and I came to Philadelphia to study photography, and I said, this is, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to leave music alone, I was like, stay away from me, music, and I was just trying to do this art thing, but it wouldn't let me go, I would rap somewhere at the party, and then it would be over from there, but I really tried to go straight arts, this kind of thing, but I always felt like if I'm an artist, there's nothing that I can't do, you know what I mean? Like, it's really about supplies and platform.
Right.
Okay. There's nothing that I won't try or have some perspective of, And the thing about it, it's always been dreaming as big as you can,
Yeah.
But sometimes with artists, we make a flyer and we're like,
Yeah.
whoa, we can make a poster.
Right.
What?
Right.
We can make a 3D animation. We can make the stop motion. It's just like, once you know how far you can take something, you're going to go for it, But that's kind of how I fell into just art making,
And it's like, when you don't have those platforms, you have to like create your own sort of world that you exist in. And like a lot of the artists that I was saying earlier, like a lot of the artists that I was into, like they would create their own worlds. And like how they did that was they like Wu-Tang Clan. Let's look at Wu-Tang Clan. They would like make their music. They did their own cover art. They had a fashion label, right? They had cartoons but like, so the idea is that like you create your own world by like designing it yourself. And for me, that means, writing short stories and like art dust, like it means making my own cover art. And like you said, like I started doing cover art and flyer art, and I was like, this actually looks kind of hot. And then people were like asking me to like display my art on walls and like small little art shows. And then it sort of evolved from there. And like, just coming up, just being enamored in cultures like hip hop and DJ culture and punk. So it's kind of like, it was natural for me to just sort of like want to try to do them all. So yeah, there's an eclectic mix, but like I try to keep it as dope as possible, like whatever I'm doing, so that it doesn't feel like I'm just jumping around doing, 10 different things, but that I'm creating this sort of after, like I call it the afterverse, this like sort of small universe that is basically my own. So, yeah.
Awesome. That's thank you for that answer. We've got a question from, I'm going to call them M. I asked them if they want to read their question out with their microphone, so I'm going to turn on their mic and see if this works.
Hello?
Yeah, we hear you. If you want to
Mhm.
introduce yourself, that's fine. If not, feel free to stay anonymous or however.
Who's this mysterious M?
It's Monk, you know, it's Magus Monk.
What's up, Mom? How you doing, Mom?
What up?
Good, it's cool to watch y'all talk. Right, so I have this like rambling ass question that's sort of more like curious about networks and resources. Kind of, I wanted to go back to when the parts where you were both talking about, Kame, you're like, Philly doesn't really get shine like New York because it's like broke and there's no celebrity investment or whatever. And then and then also like promoters not paying attention until an ally puts you on. And then like the whole situation with social media being super duper like ad market, internet malls, just like changing networks or whatever. So I'm kind of like, what do you think needs to, or what do you think just like might develop? Kind of just thinking of like everything that's been done DIY has gotten really far, but then now I feel like y'all are getting like awards and jet setting and all this stuff, and it's like there's all these resources, or just this thing where it's like there's all these resources, but like how in the future or whatever do we like deal with them or get them, or I don't know, it's a nebulous question. Sorry, I don't have a finalizing point, but
That makes sense.
No, that's what I was just, really speaking about. It's hard. It's kind of like you gotta know how to present things, like, and that's the kind of, there's no kind of, like now they have all these kind of workshops or whatever that you can sign on and learn something about the music, business or how things are going. But when I was starting out, even with rockers, I didn't know. I knew people throw shows, and they take the door money and split it. Besides that, I didn't really know. So now, like, just a couple of years ago, I'm like, oh, labels are getting a chance to present a showcase at this festival, to have their own kind of, to have their own stage. How does that work? And you start to see like the little ins and outs of how things work, and who to approach. Like I said, it goes from that point of just being happy to be here, to taking more agency. I remember when I first started touring, I was getting like a twin bed, and I was like tripping, like, yo, I want to see if I could ask for a bigger bed. Is that allowed? And you know what I mean? And then I can't remember who I got advice from, and they were like, hey, definitely could ask for that. That's no big deal at all. You know what I mean? And I did, and it was like, yeah. And I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
it's just this kind of weird thing of being like, this kind of information of what you can get, or what you can kind of present, and also that kind of takes you to be impressing people also, and sometimes you feel like sometimes you're tokenized, sometimes it's a real thing, and this one festival that I had played for 6 years in a row, it's called, before we played, he came to me, he said, hey, let's do something special next year. And I was like, okay, you know what I mean? This kind of thing where like, you can really be seen in this kind of way,
Yeah.
to be able to do more, and know what to, you know what I mean? And know the talk or how to even step into the situation. I feel like that was kind of my thing. I knew a few people. I knew King Britt. I knew King Britt did that tour, and he's someone that I could talk to. You know what I mean? But it's hard to know. And now I'm seeing tons of collectives even having their own kind of platforms at festivals and things like that. And it takes a lot to put it together. But I think I'm getting much better now. I think I'm getting much better, but also I'm still kind of weird, even though I recently kind of made something that's a little more straightforward, I'm still kind of weird. And I see people that haven't put as much work in and get these kind of platform situations. So, but also last year was a kind of look in the mirror of this kind of situation, so now I have a manager that helps me out with this kind of thing and is working to get me organized in this way that I could approach forward.
Yeah, I think for me, it was like decades and decades of impossible work, right? And then like being like, okay, I've done decades and decades of work, but like I don't have the material work to show for it. So for me, part of it was like just not focusing on that anymore, like not focusing on trying to get put on for like a huge swath of my participation in DIY, and instead was like, what do I really want to create? Like, what do I want to actually say? What's my unique voice? And like, I think I found the unique voice in like creating worlds that felt speculative, science fiction, Afrofuturism, those kinds of things were what appealed to me. And I was like, well, why can't I punk rockify those things? And so, and Monk, you were there at the, right near the catalyst of me realizing this. It was like trying to realize that, like trying to find like a specific special voice that I had, and that like what ideas do I have to present that are like kind of unique, and how do I package those ideas without quote unquote selling my soul, right? And then just forgetting about trying to get put on and just like concentrate on things that I want to do for fun and who I am as an artist and like what work I could like actually accomplish. So then I ended up unburdening myself of that. Like I sold my record collection. I stopped trying to be a superstar DJ. Like I stopped doing all this weird things. Unburdening myself of that was like huge for me. Like it was just like, whoa, I can just sit here and write superhero stories for like 2 weeks, right? And then just not really caring about whether, when I did Chrome City or Laser Life, whether people were going to show up or not, and just being like, I'm just going to do it because that's what I want to do. And then like, so once I had this like sort of body of work and this like, this sort of like momentum and these like ideas that felt like naturalistically my own, then I was able to say, well, maybe I should submit to something, or maybe there's someone out there who wants to put out the Solarized record, things like that. Like it started with me unburdening myself from like wanting to be this, and this is stuff that I have to tell myself now as I try to like expand a little bit more and talk with like studios and stuff about like getting some of my stories made into TV shows and things like that. So I have to like sort of tell myself to like maybe like not tamp down, but like just create the work and like don't be so enamored with trying to be put on, because those gates are real gates that we're screaming at. When we say open gates, like we're so serious, like, and there's like a huge, and like I'm a music journalist, so I know that there's like a lot of like gatekeeping in music, and like I try to put pressure on publishers to look at more underground artists, to look at more Black artists, more queer artists, and I'm always going to champion them. So yeah, there's it's really frustrating, but do the work and then like know to ask. It's like Kame had to know to ask to get certain amenities on tour. Like you have to know to ask, like, oh, I could actually tour, the country by giving this workshop, right? Like, and that'll open, doors for me. Or like, I don't know, like I give art dust to people that I think are interesting and who I want to collaborate with. And, it's actually kind of worked out for me. So I think that those are like just being open and aware to like different avenues of how you can approach getting these resources is another way of doing it too. Sorry, that was a little long-winded.
No, but just one thing to add, like, so I had this idea where I'm like, yeah, I want to have this kind of what they call a vanity label. You know what I mean? And it's just like, okay, I have, 10 artists in mind, you know what I mean? But then it's like, okay, well, I would only be able to pay them what, $500 and their record will be in stores. This kind of thing. It's just like, how do you negotiate if this is even a good deal for someone? Is this even the way to take it? You get me? I feel like sometimes we all, like, who are the businessmen? I'm not no businessman. You know what I mean? In this kind of way, but I definitely want to create platforms, So I think it's kind of like that thing, like, understanding that there is learning on the while we're creating, but also about what people, want to do, what people want to sacrifice to do. I mean, these are kind of like these conversations, that I feel like need to be had, because on the business standpoint, it's always someone that's going to want to own your work. You get me?
Mhm.
So it's like, you have to say that. Are you okay with someone owning your work for 20 years? Is that where we're moving towards? Or is it just like, all these just kind of ways of like give and take of what they present to us, It's like, okay, Kamei, you can bring your friend Alex's band Solarize to release a record, and we'll put it in the stores, but we're gonna own it for 20 years. And so I'm like, what conversation is that? I guess that's just a conversation of like, hey, do you value the record? Can you let the record go and just to have it in stores as a first step towards something? Or is that a big no for you? You know what I mean? And it's not going to be a yes for everyone, but you also don't want to be in a situation where, say you say yes, Alex, and then you're like, oh, okay, but I don't own my stuff for 20 years, and I did this deal, and you got me in this deal, Kamei. You know what I mean? And it's just
Oh
like,
yeah.
should I even have gotten involved in that? Thinking about what platforms are really worth it, to the collective, to where we're trying to go, to the future we're trying to build. And it's like, we need everyone's ideas, like the ideas don't stop, the think tank never stops. It's like whenever we have a situation, yeah, we can reach out to each other, but we shouldn't kind of wait to those kind of moments, It's just kind of like, because that's how it happened in Philly. I only knew that you could tour because this band, the National Rifle, toured that I booked for Rockers.
Right.
So we saw the National Rifle. We're like, you know what? They're touring. Maybe we can do this. How did you do that? Oh, we just emailed a bunch of people. So then we started emailing a bunch of people. You get me? It's like, I didn't know, So yeah, I'll just say that. I don't know if there's another question.
Yeah, if you two folks have one time, we'll do one last question, if that's all right. We're a little over. Do you both have a few more
Yeah, I can
minutes?
do one more. Yeah.
That'd be great. Okay, it was Joy. Are you still there, Joy? I'm going to hit the button, and you can go ahead and ask your question.
Yo,
Hey,
what's up?
Peace, Joy.
how y'all doing?
Good. Good to hear your voice.
Very inspired by listening to y'all talk just about the evolution of, both of your works, and also from the perspective of somebody who has been an outsider, like not a Philly person, coming in and just seeing this very vibrant scene. So just love hearing y'all talk about y'all perspective. And one of the things that really stood out to me during the talk was Alex talking about this sort of creating this ecosystem for change and movement in some ways, and also like planting things that you may not see the fruits of. But I was wondering, well, two things. One is like, what do y'all see as like the next iteration of y'all work? And like, if in your most rhizomatic mycelial dreams about what your work would look like after you were gone, the impact of your work would look like after you were gone, like what things would you expect and what things would you be surprised but elated about?
That's hard for me because I guess I would I would want to be able to just like, okay, this is ridiculous because it's like I want to like change people's lives or whatever, which is like bordering cliche, bordering sort of like egotistical to say it kind of in a weird way. But like I really believe that like art, music, every kind of art and music, even like video games, right, can like absolutely affect like a unit of spiritual governance, right? Like, and so I would like to be able to be a part of the lexicon or the pantheon that's like changing people's point of view. Like I want to people to see my work and say, wow, this is something I've never thought of before. And like, you know, I want them to be challenged by it and figure out how it aligns with their own practice, with their own dichotomy. And yeah, I guess I don't think too far ahead, you know, as far as like, you know, 50 to 100 years in the future. Because it's so hard as a marginalized person to just wonder if I'm going to exist tomorrow. So, but I think just by like creating these worlds, we give a little bit more sustenance to this idea that we will be existing tomorrow. So that's enough for me at this point. Personally, I would like to get more into, as I kind of mentioned, I would like to start like making film or television shows, but that's a little bit further down the line, I think, for me. Kamei, did you?
Yeah, I guess I would say I could expect it to like be like studied in like sound studies and kind of thing like this, because I have put a lot of kind of like hidden messages and things like this in the work. I would, you know, I would hope that I can stretch the limits, you know, of what Black women can do, you know, with music. You know, I have a lot of different, you know, hands in a lot of different, whatever you call that, I don't know, like a, you know, multi-feet or whatever, you know, this like, trying to open up different ways to create more access. I'm also thinking about that, you know, with my work. Not something that, it was more or less last year. I was thinking about that with the albums that I made last year that soon will be coming out. But I want to get deeper into the avant-garde and just kind of like really stretch it out, you know, in both directions, you know, like something clean, but something really far out, as far out as I can. So, you know, other musicians can just like feel comfortable in that, you know, because there's still so much, even that I feel, you know, pressure to kind of conform, you know, so want to kind of alleviate that as much as possible for those that come after me. But I also want to really get into the idea of feeling, of what the rhythm, how people react to the rhythm, what's it's doing to your body, kind of evolve it in that kind of way. So we could have these kind of practicing of, whether we're slipping the spell or the curse, or, like get back into that, like the power in sound. And, and also want to create this kind of archive, this kind of sound archive that can continue to be like, the future is sound pack, that kind of thing. So I feel like I want to really broaden my collection, even though it's pretty vast now, but of all the bits, all the moans, all the things that have driven me. Yeah, I hope I think I messed up on the answer a little bit, but
That was good.
All right, huge questions. Great conversation today. Thanks for everyone for being here, participating, for listening in, and a huge thanks to Alex and Kamei for making the time out of both of your busy schedules to be here. I'm very humbled by that. And just so thanks a lot. I hope to talk to you all soon, and have a great night wherever you are. All right.
you too. Thank you so much.
Radical.
Peace, everyone. I love you all.
Peace.